going.
Welcome to the sixth day of the Omer and the sixth method of acquiring Torah as set forth in the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos and Perek Vav, Mishnah Vav, the sixth chapter, the sixth Mishnah, and that is Yira, fear. The Rambam actually translates Yira as more in the nature of awe, but since the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos has a separate method of acquiring Torah of Ema, of awe, we're going to stick with the more classic translation of Yira, and that is straight out fear. There are different levels of observing Hashem and serving Hashem through fear. On a minimalist level, it might be fear of punishment. That would be yiras ha'onesh, fear of doing something wrong and the punishment that one might receive from doing something wrong. On a higher level of yira, it would be not because of the consequences that we fear, but we fear not doing the right thing because it is the right and proper thing to do. And every person has to find their balance in terms of what level of yira, what level of fear they might serve God with. The source for the fear, as being a commandment and something that we should strive for, is actually found in Sefer Dvarim, in the book of Dvarim, in Parshas Ekev, in the 10th chapter of Dvarim. Pasuk Yud Bes, the 12th verse says, Va'ata Yisrael ma Hashem Elokecha sho'el me'imach. And now Israel, what is it that Hashem asks of you? Ki'im liyira es Hashem, only that you should fear God, l'leches b'chol derachav, so that you will walk in all of His ways, u'li'ahava oso, and that you will love Him, u'li'avod es Hashem elokecha, and that you will serve your God b'chol levavcha, with all your heart, u'b'chol nafshecha, and with all your soul. And then the next verse goes on, lishmor es hamitzvos, so that you will keep the commandments. So we see that yira es Hashem, as set forth in the Chumash, is an essential ingredient to all of the other things that we want, to be able to serve God, to keep His mitzvahs, to walk in His way, to love Him, etc. It seems as though this is a critical component that we have to have. On the Pasuk, Rashi brings down a Maimer Chazal from the Gemara. It's in Brachos on Lamed Gimel Amud Beis on page 33b, where it says, Amar Rabbi Chanina says, HaKol bidei Shemayim, everything is in the hands of heaven, of Hashem, chutz miyiras Shemayim, except for fear of heaven, which is an incredible statement. All of the things that comprise us, who we are, our life, our health, our wealth, who we marry, our children, are all within the hands of heaven, meaning Hashem has the ability to control that. The only thing that Hashem doesn't have the ability to control, says Rabbi Chanina, is yiras shamayim, whether or not we will have this proper fear of heaven. And so, not only does yira appear to be a critical component in our service to Hashem, something that's essential, the one thing that Hashem asks of us, as said in Dvarim, but it's also the one thing that Hashem says He will not control. It's the one thing Hashem gives to us, and it's our responsibility to establish that proper relationship with Hashem of yira. So what is that proper relationship, and how are we to understand that, and how can we internalize that to help in our service of Hashem and in our acquisition of Torah? Well, there's another way to translate Yira es Hashem. The typical translation would be fear of God, but the word es, aleph tav, or et, if you will, has different meanings depending on context, and one of the accepted meanings or translations of es is with. Es ha'elokim hisalech Noach, and Noach walked with God. So instead of translating Yira es Hashem as fear of God, if we translate Yira es Hashem as fear with God, it perhaps opens up a new insight into this mitzvah of Yira and this importance of acquiring Yira. I once heard a mashal, and I am afraid I cannot recall the name of the Rebbe I heard it from. This Torah is not my Torah, but it is one that I heard many years ago, and it left a profound impact on me. The mashal, the story is of a parent teaching a young child, a toddler, a 1.5 or 2-year-old, who knows how to walk and run, but who has no concept of the dangers outside of the home, teaching the child to be certain never to run into the street. And so the parent lectures the child and says to the child in a very stern voice, in a very firm voice, if you walk into that street, I will potch you so hard you will not sit down for a week. And the child sees the seriousness on the parent's face, and the child understands this is something extremely important. Now, if we look at the level of fear between the child and the parent, they are two completely different levels of fear. What is the child afraid of? The child is afraid of the punch from the parent. The child is afraid of the punishment. That's the only concept the child has. The child has no concept of what the street is, what traffic in the street means, what if, God forbid, the child should be hit by a car if it runs into the street. Those are things the child doesn't understand or appreciate. What is the fear of the parent? The fear of the parent is that, God forbid, my child should run into the street and get hit by a car and be seriously hurt or killed. The fear of each person, the parent and the child, are different. They don't share the same vision. What would Yiras es Hashem, fear with Hashem, be? It's that we should get to the point where we share the same fear. So Hashem has given us mitzvahs, and Hashem has given us in these mitzvahs, in these commandments, the understanding that there may be punishments if we don't perform them, or if we fail to perform them properly, or if we perform and do an avera that's a negative commandment. So we understand the punishment. But what's Hashem's fear? Hashem's fear, much like the parent is that we will, by performing the avera, we will hurt our neshama. That part of us that is part of Hashem, as it were, will have a pagam, will have a blemish on it because of something that we've done. So Hashem wants us to avoid the averas, the sins, and to follow in His ways, because Hashem wants our neshamas to be able to be returned to Him after 120 years, as perfect as the day we received them. That's Hashem's fear, as it were. And our fear, if we can get to that level and share that same fear with Hashem, would be on the same level as Hashem. So we're not fearing the punishment, but we are concerned about hurting our neshamas. We want to serve Hashem and follow in His ways out of love of Hashem and out of fear that if we don't, somehow we will be hurting and blemishing our neshamas, not doing the right thing, not following in the right ways, because that's the way that we're supposed to do it. So if the parent and the child can get on the same page, and if the child would understand not running in the street is for my own benefit, it has nothing to do with the punishment, because there's a greater concern of the parent. If we can get to that level, then our avodas Hashem through Yira can perhaps be easier to accomplish.